Hi, this is Michael Spokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Today I want to deal with some possible reasons why a ministry is just not working out. Possible reasons why a ministry looks promising, you start it, but it's just not working out. And I'm sure some of you have seen that. But I want to also maybe to lay a foundation here that sometimes there are those ministries that are just not working out. And be bold enough as a leader, be bold enough as a visionary to let it go and start it afresh, because there are those that have started ministries and things are just not working out, and they are actually sticking on it and they're sticking it out, and because you've been encouraged to stick it out and to be patient and so on, but there are things that just don't work. And if the ministry is just not working, it should be able to diagnose it much more quicker before you waste your time, before you waste other people's time as well. So please diagnose it quicker. So be able to identify that things are just not working here, and therefore start actually winding it up and maybe throw the towel and restart again. I mean, there's nothing wrong about that and starting again, all over again, because this is just not working. I'm just giving you the tips of that because I want us to look at some possible reasons why people seeing their ministry is just not working. And those are type of things that you should look at, because they may actually help you if you sort them out for you to start seeing the ministry working out. You could have mistaken the voice of God from the beginning, because there are some of you who are actually convinced that you've been called by God. You're convinced that you've heard the voice of God who have given you a vision. But sometimes when you start to do things, you realize that things are just not working out, and you might have mistaken the voice of God. Now, if you are able to track back and look at, did I really hear the voice of God? And if by any means you are able to identify that you have mistaken the voice of God, so please feel free to have guts. Feel free to be bold enough to say, I've actually missed the voice of God. So therefore, I cannot continue with this because I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting the people's time as well, because I never had the voice of God. And be bold as well to tell people. And don't be afraid, because there are many people that will feel embarrassed by telling people that I started this, I didn't hear the voice of God. I thought I did, but I realized now that I didn't do. So therefore, it's very important for you to identify that earlier on, because that will help you actually to wind up much more quicker than to go a long while and a long miles and only to find that you've wasted your own time and things are just not working out. But please make sure that you are careful of that, because when you have heard the voice of God and things are not working out, it may not necessarily mean that things are not working out. It might need that you become patient. It might need that you are actually going through what you're going through in order to test you, to mature you, and to shape you and to grow you. And that could be. So please be careful and identify clearly where you didn't hear the voice of God. Let it be clear that I didn't hear the voice of God, and that's the reason why I'm winding up this one. Secondly, you might have started for wrong motives, because there are people that start churches for wrong motives. There are people that start ministries for wrong motives. And what are some of the wrong motives? Some of the wrong motives are money, where people are actually starting ministries for financial reason, because they want to make money out of a church. And I want to emphasize that some of you who think that the church makes money, you are in the wrong profession. You're in the wrong place, because you are actually going to manipulate people at the end of the day. And that's the only way you're going to rob people and start making money through that. And that's really, really very evil. And that's very wrong. So, but the church, in real sense, doesn't make money, because remember, this is not a business. A church is not a business. It's not making money. You're not selling things. So this is very important that we are aware that you might, in this regard, have started this ministry with wrong motives. And some of the wrong motives are actually whereby you're competing with your friends and your peers, because they've opened churches and you open a church as well. and you feel that I need to open a church as well because my peers have opened churches. That's the wrong motives. And when you open with the wrong motives, and you realize that you've opened with the wrong motives, so please be bold enough as well. Please humble yourself, swallow your pride, and make sure that you unwind it and get off and really release yourself out of this, because otherwise you launching yourself into more misery the more you continue. If it's something that you opened with the wrong motives and you're not actually in it, you're not even having passion of it because you opened with the wrong motive and it cannot work. So that's the reason why it is not working. So be careful of that and make sure that you sort it out much more earlier on. Now, the other thing that we have seen happening is possible lack of readiness on the part of the visionary to handle a ministry. Because remember, when you're called by God, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're ready. And that's the reason why we teach people as Church Governance Solutions that when you are called by God, it may not be that you must start the ministry now. Immediately you're called by God, the right thing to do is to attend trainings, to start learning, to start reading and studying, to start being mentored and equip yourself to a level where you're matured and knowledgeable, to a level where you are grown up and you are ready. Please make sure that if you need to go to Bible college and do Bible studies so that you can mature and grow. If you need to learn leadership skills, so please make sure that you enroll in leadership and make sure that you learn leadership as well, because a church is going to need a leader that's matured. A church is going to need somebody who's matured in leadership so that you can be able to lead this particular church. So that is why I want to emphasize that you might start the church and you're not ready yet. And that is why maybe the church is just not working out. And that is why maybe it is crumbling like it is. It's mainly because you are not matured enough. You are not ready. You are not actually prepared to run a ministry. So I want to urge you that make yourself ready. Empower yourself. Learn, study to show yourself approved. And that's very important. And when you're fully matured and ready to open a ministry, therefore it becomes much more easier for you to do. And I must emphasize that because it's very key that you become ready. So if things are not working out, it might be that you were not ready in the beginning as a visionary to handle a ministry. The other thing that makes people to see a church not running well or just crumbling and not working out is purely because of poor administration and poor leadership. When you run a church with poor leadership and poor administration, I want to tell you now that it is not going to work out. And I'm going to tell you now that it is going to crumble and fall, because poor leadership and poor administration, they're actually a recipe of failure. And many churches fail because of poor leadership and poor administration as well. And I want to urge you as leaders, particularly pastors, that if you are going to have a good leadership, you definitely need to appoint leaders more appropriately and well from the beginning. And make sure that you appoint the right people, not because people are your buddies. Don't appoint people because they are your relatives. Don't appoint people because you know them better, but appoint people that are matured, people that know leadership, people that will lead and follow the principles of leadership. And this is very important, because when you start to appoint people wrongly, you're going to find the church to crumble and you're going to fail it. And that's very key. I want to emphasize this, that you know that is very important, therefore, that you have good leadership, you have good administration, and therefore you can actually rule that one out before you scrutinize why the ministry is not working out. And that you would know that in that regard, I am sorted, and therefore it cannot be that, but it's something else. So please make sure that you look at that. Now sometimes it's a poor approach in appointment of leaders. And as I've said, that when you appoint leaders in an inappropriate manner, because these are the people that are prayerful, and you appoint them because of they are prayerful, and they are not good leaders though. Because not everybody who's prayerful is a good leader. So I'm talking about things like that. We don't appoint people because of they are prayerful, because they are closer to you as a pastor. We don't appoint them because they are your relatives. You appoint people because they are good leaders, people that have got skills of leadership. This is the way you appoint people, and that's why when you appoint people with good leadership, you're actually going to have a very good leadership in that church, and therefore you'll see your ministry going well. Most of the ministries are not going well right now because of poor leadership, and it's purely because of you've appointed leadership very wrongly. I want to also say poor location of the church. Poor location, poor place where you put it. You don't go into a bush and go and establish a church where there are no people that are staying there. Because remember, a church should have members. It must have people that are attending. So therefore, a church must be accessible. And some of the churches are just not accessible enough. And you know that you're catering for poor people that don't have their own cars to travel to where you are, but you're taking your church away from the people, and you expect them to continue going on and attending. And they are failing to come purely because they don't have transport. They don't have money to come or to use to come, because there's not even accessibility in transport. So the location of the church or the ministry is very key for you to look at, to say, why is the ministry not working? Now, I want to also emphasize that those people that started churches in places that are not progressive, we're talking about what we call mature residential places. For an example, if where you have started your church is actually a location where there are only 10 households, say for instance, is a place where there are only 10 households. And this place is saturated with 10 households, and it's not going to grow any bigger because either there's no space to build for more families to come, or else the place is just redundant in a way that nobody want to stay there. But yet you're having a church and it's only 10 households. You must expect the church to be smaller in the sense of membership, because remember that there are not enough people around the place. So therefore, your growth cannot be expanded beyond the 10 families that are there. So therefore, if you expect to make a mega church in that particular place, you are lying to yourself and you're wasting your own time. Because remember, there are not going to be more people all of a sudden, miraculously, if there are only 10 households. There are only those people, the capacity has been reached, and therefore you cannot expect the church to grow. And that is the reason why we want to emphasize that the location of the ministry is very key as well, because that speaks to that. I want to also emphasize the fact that ministry started without salvation as the foundation. That becomes problematic. And I must emphasize that when you started ministry, you are not saved. The people are not saved. And therefore, we're having a problem here, because you are starting a ministry and you are saying you're a visionary, you're not saved yourself, and the people are not saved, and there's no Christ in it, and becomes difficult. And that is why some of the ministries crumble, because everybody in there is not born again, because the visionary himself was not born again. And that's critical and very, very important that we look into things like that. Maybe that is the reason why your ministry is not working out. It's purely because you're not born again, sir. It's purely because your people cannot be born again if you're not born again either. That's very key, and I hope you will look at these pointers and make use of them and correct them so that you can see your ministry working out. Thank you very much for listening to us and being part of this great topic. I hope you've learned out of this topic and you would make use of it and make sure that your ministry becomes successful. Please don't forget as well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you click that notification button as well. Make sure that you are aware of every video that comes through. And may the good Lord bless you and allow me to say cheers for now.